Hello everyone, welcome. Chodesh Tov to you all. Rosh Chodesh Kislev Tov to you all. It's been a very interesting month when we introduced Cheshvan last month, and we talked about how the emptiness doesn't need to be bitterness, but actually we can grow from it. We didn't realize we'd be going into another lockdown and of course have the loss of Rabbi Sachs. But after emptiness, there is growth, and Kislev represents that. With the lights of the Chanukiah in the winter months. And I'm very pleased to welcome this month Rabbanit Batya Friedman from Hampstead Garden Synagogue, also known as Norris Lee, who is going to give us some beautiful words of Torah, of wisdom about the month of Kislev. Over to you, Rabbanit Batya. It's so great to have you with us.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Hadassah. I appreciate the invitation. You always bring such music and light every month to the women of United Synagogue, and I'm sure beyond. So really appreciate all the efforts that you bring to us. So today I'd like to talk to you about two events that occurred in the month of Kislev. One in the beginning and one in the end. One is about God's covenant with humankind, and the other about his special covenant with our people. I think we're all familiar with that time that our people renewed their covenant with God, the festival of Hanukkah. You all know that famous festival in Kislev. And as you mentioned, Hadassah, last week we lost our great teacher, Rabbi Lord Sachs. And so I thought it'd be very apropos that we'd learn some of his Torah together. The story of Hanukkah represents the survival of our nation. And Rabbi Lord Sachs points out that the historians record the story as a physical victory over the Greeks. In the books of the Maccabees 1 and 2, it relates the incredible battle over the few triumphing over the many. While our tradition remembers the story of the miracle of light that lasted for 8 days. Rabbi Sachs explains that the reason we won all this was because of our heritage. He explains it with a story that the Talmud relates about a rabbi called Yehoshua ben Gamliel. In the first century, in the last days of the Second Temple, Rabbi Yehoshua established a network of schools throughout Israel. It was publicly funded, first ever of its kind. And our sages tell us that without him, the Torah would have been lost. There would be no Judaism, there would be no Jews. What they understood was that the education was what saved us. Because the true miracle of Hanukkah wasn't about our physical victory. The Greeks, unlike the story of Purim, wanted to defeat us by annihilating our heritage, our culture. The real battle against the Greeks was not a military one, but a cultural one. Rabbi Sachs continues to say, to defend a country physically, you need an army. To defend a civilization, you need education, educators, and schools. And that's what Rabbi Yehoshua did. Our heritage teaches us that the sanctity of life and that every human being is an image of God. And all the things that make Torah and Judaism unique and distinctive. The Greeks survived 500 years because of their academies. But when their academies failed, the civilization was lost. We never let our academies fail. And we can see this in the word of Hanukkah. Right? It comes from the word chanoch. Chanoch, which really means rededication. Yes, we rededicated our temple after its destruction. But over time, it also came from the word chinuch, education. We educate our children and our pupils about our heritage. Let's not jump ahead of ourselves, because what's today? Today is Rosh Chodesh. But did you know that it's also known as the Day of the Rainbow? It is the first time that God showed us the rainbow after the Great Flood. After God destroys the world, he gives humanity another chance to prove themselves. It becomes a day of the rainbow, the day God renewed his covenant with all humankind. What does that mean for us? As Jews, we have a dual responsibility. Rabbi Sachs would call this our particularistic duty and our universalistic duty. Yes, it's true that we must strengthen our resolve to Judaism, Jewish culture, and Jewish education. But today, Rosh Chodesh, the day of the rainbow, we also renew our covenantal commitment to our fellow human beings, to make this world a better place, and to teach the world about morality, ethics, kindness, and godliness. So may this Rosh Chodesh and the full month of Kislev bring us to a better place and a better world, a healing world.
Amen. Thank you very much, Rabbanit Bati, for those words about ideas to tap into for this month. As we like to start all of these of our women's Hallels, I think it's a great idea to talk about the month and the energy of the month. Each month has its own thing that it brings that's supposed to, invigorate us and give us a message for the year, and a different message each month. I also think it's really nice and important to look at the words of Hallel itself, and hopefully I'll just share with you some ideas so that when we sing it, you'll have that kavanah, you'll have that understanding as you say it to make it even more meaningful. I also feel it's very appropriate to read a bit of what Rabbi Sachs wrote in the Siddur, in this green Siddur that so many of us know, it's in so many of our synagogues, that Rabbi Sachs totally and radically rewrote the translation to make it accessible to us. And in his translation, he was very intentional with every word that he used, and it's very accessible compared to sort of if you look at previous Siddurim that are translated, and the English is so archaic. And so it's really a legacy that he's leaving behind. And I just wanted to pick up on a few words that whenever I say them every Rosh Chodesh with you, I find it not only the tune powerful, but the words themselves powerful. And the words are from the paragraph, Ma Ashiv LaHashem. How can I repay? How can I return? How can I repay God? Kol tagmulohi alai, for all the goodness, for all of his goodness to me. And then later on in the paragraph, so it talks about lifting up a cup of bracha. And I always find this as a really powerful moment that we're raising our cup to recognize the good in our lives and to be grateful no matter what we're feeling. And if we can always just see what we are grateful for, that itself lifts us up. But there's particular words which I find stir something in me. And when I was reading the commentary in this wonderful Siddur, I found it a very powerful idea that I wanted to share with you. It says, Ana Hashem, ki ani avdecha. And Rabbi Sachs translates this as, truly, Lord, I am your servant. Ani avdecha ben amatecha. I am the servant. I am your servant, the son of your maidservant. Hitachta lemoserai. You set me free from my chains. And I think it's such an interesting and strange imagery to say, not only am I your servant, I'm the servant of your maidservant. And this for me brings thoughts of deep humility. When I think of, I'm not just a servant, I'm lower than a servant. I'm being generation servant of a servant, but in terms of serving you. But what Rabbi Sachs brings here in commentaries from both the Radak and Rabbi Soloveitchik is that one idea is the son of your maidservant means serving you comes naturally because my mother did likewise. We're referring to our heritage, that this is something that we've been taught from our parents and specifically our mothers, the son of your maidservant. Rabbi Sachs continues that whereas a father might teach us a discipline of action, a mother teaches us the living experience of the commandments, their flavor, scent, and warmth. From her we learn to feel the presence of the Almighty. The fathers knew much about Shabbat. The mothers lived the Shabbat, experienced her presence, and perceived her beauty and splendor. And he quotes this from Rav Soloveitchik. And I found that particularly inspiring, thinking of us as women davening here today, that whether we have children or not, we have a huge duty to pass on this lived experience, the experiential part of Judaism, of course also the discipline and the learning, but that's something that we uniquely can give in terms of how you might create the home or the lovingness or the first few years of a child's life. And that's a powerful message when we think of Ani Avdecha Ben Amatecha. Chodesh Tov, everyone. I would like to wish you a month filled with light. Light has been lost from us as a people with the passing of Rabbi Sachs. But there is much light to find in ourselves, in each other. Please, I hope you find light with your family, find light in the work that you do, the meaningful work that you do in prayer, in your connection with God. And that light should keep being ignited for you from this month to all the months going forward. Chodesh Tov.
Amen. And you know, it says that it was b'zchut nashim tzidkaniyos nigalu avatenu Mitzrayim, right? That it was because of these righteous women that we left Egypt. And you're singing and bringing that real spirituality of what Hallel is all about is really, you are going to bring us out of this galut now and light up this month with all the women singing together. And Bezrat Hashem, we should get there and fill and complete get to complete Geulah. So Chodesh Tov and Yasher Koach. Kol HaKavod.